So please welcome Mr. Vendon Smith.
Yay! Thank you. That is an outstanding introduction. Thank you so much. I hope I
Thank
could
you.
live up. First of all, thank you for having me. I am honored to be able to participate again in an event with California Placement Association. I'm going to bug you all to death because I want to be on the team. I want to hang out, and I want to come and hang out and give to givers. So today, my presentation, first of all, welcome everyone, all of you difference makers out there, all of you people who are working to help people. I'm honored to be able to give to you. One of the things that I really enjoy is blessing people who bless other people. And for those of you who are job developers and you're helping people in their transition back into the workforce, you're giving tools and techniques and helping people get back to work and changing people's lifestyles. That means the world to me. So thank you for allowing me to participate and be a part. I'm going to get right into this presentation, but I want it to be I know that it's interesting because I love presenting in person. And for those of you who hang out with me, you know that I love presenting in person. So this is kind of new. I'm going to miss kind of the interaction. But if you could just kind of put the information in the chat, I guess we'll be able to kind of get it. Somebody's monitoring the chat for questions and that type of thing, because I want this to be a solid info-packed hour that we hang out together. So if you'll allow me to share my screen, please, I'll go ahead and pull my PowerPoint up and we'll jump right into the PowerPoint. So welcome again to Job Interviewing Tips, Tools, and Tricks for people who help other people. Okay, so my objective today is I want to provide a new way to look at the interviewing process. Okay, and I also want to discuss some elements of interviewing, and then we want to talk about the tough questions that are asked, and then I want to provide you with some of my favorite techniques that I use. So you're going to need some scratch paper. So if you have some scratch paper near you, go ahead and pull your scratch paper out, because you're going to need that when we get to the activities, okay? And again, you'll be able to take this, you'll be able to teach these techniques immediately to your workshops, especially when we go back. You'll also be able to do this virtually as well, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want you to start looking at interviewing from a different perspective. Many of us are very nervous about this interviewing process because we think it's kind of many of us are even afraid of the interviewing process. So I consider myself, although I've been doing interviewing techniques for more than 20 years, I don't know a lot about interviewing, but I am a relationship expert. So I don't know if any of you have ever been in a relationship, but I believe that many of us we share that and we have that in common. So I'd like you to begin to look at the interviewing process as if you would a relationship. And so I believe that that pursuing an employer is like getting into a relationship. The goal is to build cohesive relationships. That's the goal. And so I believe that companies have been in relationships where they've been hurt. And I don't know about you, but I've also been hurt in relationships too. I've been the hurter and the hurtee, if you will. In any event, what we try to do, if we've ever been in a relationship where we've been hurt, we try to do things differently the next time. So I believe that employers are exactly the same way. So they have this exhaustive screening process to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes that they did in the past, right? Can I get an amen? Amen. Anyway, so there's a process, this interviewing process, there's a process, but I'm going to continue to connect it to relationship. And so if you'll just kind of indulge me and just kind of go with this relationship thought process, I guarantee that it will demystify this interviewing process. So the first thing that I'd like to do is kind of discuss the anatomy of the interview. First of all, I believe that there's a pre and then the actual interview, and then there's the post or the follow-up. Okay, but again, I'm going to draw the correlation between interviewing and relationship. So the first thing, there's the pre, and something that you do prior to the first date, if you will. So again, I look at the interviewing process as dates. Okay, so the first date is your first interview. But prior to the first interview, especially in our virtual world now, we want to do some research. Now, there are a lot of websites out there that will allow you to research and get to swipe right or left. Interviewing is the same way. If there's a company that you're pursuing, you want to find some information out about them because you want to find out why you like them so much. So just like a profile, interviewers or companies have profiles. They have websites and information that you can gather so that you can intelligently speak about during the interview. Okay, so you want to research the company, find out about the position, okay, so that you can intelligently match your skills to what you're looking for. So again, when you're talking with teammates and you're talking to people that you're assisting, make sure that they do their homework. Make sure that they look at the profiles of the companies that they're interviewing with. They can get them on LinkedIn. They can also get them on there. Many companies have websites. They can get them on Facebook. But do your research just like you would if you were going on an interview or going on a date. Then there's the actual interview. So you want to practice appropriate responses, but most of us we don't know what to say because we've never been given tools to do so. So I'm going to give you some tools later that will allow you, again, to apply them to the interview that'll give you a better, it'll help you make a better first impression. Then know the dirty dozen. We're going to talk about what those dirty dozen are, and I'm going to kind of let you know what the questions are, and then I'm going to give you some tools. Then in the post-interview, again, you want to follow up. After the date, you want to follow up to see how the date went. And you also want to be gently persistent during the process as well. So, so you want to follow up, but you don't want to be thirsty, but you do want to follow up, right? Same premise. Okay, so the dirty dozen. These are questions that are typically asked in the interview process. And I'm going to translate them a little bit using the relationship as an analogy. So tell me something about yourself. Tell me something about yourself is one of the most important questions in the interview because it sets the tone for the interview. Just like when you're going on a date, that tell me something about yourself. The person really kind of likes you already. They've already kind of viewed your profile. So now they ask you. Now, in your case, your profile is your resume and your application. They've already reviewed that. So now that they've reviewed those things, now they kind of want to see that they're looking for chemistry. Companies hire people they like, so that they don't want to rule you out. So a lot of times when people go into the interviewing process, they believe that, oh my God, I hope I'm good enough. Well, they believe you're good enough or you wouldn't be in the interviewing process. They wouldn't interview you if they didn't think that you were qualified. So make sure that when you're talking to your students, make sure you let them know that if they get an interview, they're qualified for the position. So now they can focus on being liked. So tell me something about yourself is one of those questions. And again, now, if we were in a group setting, I would ask, like, what do you want to hear? Now, when you're on a date, you want to hear good stuff, right? You want to hear things that are positive. You want to hear things that may be fun. Well, that's the same thing that companies are looking for, because remember, they're looking to like you. They want you to be the right person, because the alternative to you not being the right person is having to start this screening process all over again. That is it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money for companies to continue to set up interviews and try to get you in and try to find the best candidate. For those of you who have been looking for the right mate, that it's hard out there. So because it's hard out there, it takes a process. Well, companies are doing exactly the same thing in their screening process too. So they're hoping that you're the right person this time. Just like when you're on your first date, you want that date to work out. Okay. What do you know about our company? Now, companies want to know that you've done some research. They also want to know that you're there because you like them, but they also want to know that you're bringing something to the company too. So that's why I tell you to do some research prior to going, because companies want to know, what do you know about our company? So in other words, they also, in the relationship, this question would be, of all the people that you could have chosen, why did you choose me in relationship? That's what this question would be. So do your research so that you can intelligently speak about the company. What is your greatest strength? Now, this is a strength-based question. The company, when they ask, what is your greatest strength? What they're looking for is what you bring to the table or how you're going to benefit their organization. What is your greatest weakness? This question is This question is just to know if you have some self-awareness. Now, companies don't care that you have a weakness. They care that you have a weakness, but you're working to resolve those issues. What do you hope to be doing in 5 years? Now, this is an important question too, because really, they don't really care what you hope to be doing in 5 years. What they're really asking is, how long do you plan on being with us? How long do you plan on being with me? So in the relationship, that's what the question would be. How long do you think this is going to work? How long do you think this is going to last? What direction are we going in? What are we doing here? Okay. What can you offer my organization? That's very important. In the relationship, this will be like, what do you bring to the table? How are you going to make my life better? If I called your last employer, what would they say about you? This speaks to reputation. Okay, this speaks to reputation. This is a strength-based question. And in a moment, I'm going to give you a tool to answer any strength-based question. I've hired people with more experience than you. Why should I hire you? Okay. And in other words, what they're really saying, and in relationship, they'd be saying, hey, of all the people that, everyone says that they like me. What do you bring to the table? Or why should I hire you? Or what makes you the best candidate? Okay. Describe a difficult time that you have with a coworker and how to handle it. Here's in a relationship, this question would be, they want to see what your level of crazy is, because there's some levels of crazy out there. I've dated, and there's some level of crazy out there. So they want to know that you can handle conflict, and also they want to know that you have the ability to communicate, and also that you can kind of you can resolve issues. Okay. I'm going to give you a tool to answer that question as well. Okay, what was your last boss like? Now, in relationship, this question, you never want to talk bad about the ex, right? Never want to talk bad about the ex, because if you talk bad about the ex, the person that you're speaking with on the date is going to think that you're going to speak badly of them if things don't work out. Plus, there is a connection for some reason. If I said something negative about women right now, all of the women would disengage from this. They would hang up, and then they would call Miss Crawford and go, why did you get this jerk to come, right? Because you all share that area of diversity, right? Bosses, for some reason, share an area of diversity. They share that area of diversity. They're a boss. So if you say something negative about a boss, they're going to think that you're going to just speak negatively about them, or they're going to side with the boss because they don't know you yet. So when you say that my boss was a jerk, they're going to go, maybe your boss was a jerk because you weren't a great employee. So never speak badly about the boss. What motivates you and why? When companies ask you this, what they're asking is they're trying to determine why you selected them. So again, if you do your research, it will give you a insight on, and it'll give you the opportunity to speak about things that may impress the company. Now, companies are like us. They like to be flattered, especially on a date. So that's why it's also important to gain information so that you can intelligently tell the company why you're interested in them. So when you're talking to your clients, make sure that you get their mindset around relationship. Because if you want a date and someone says, why did you pick me, or why do you want to work here? And you say, well, I want to work here because you guys have good benefits and you guys pay well. That's just like telling someone, hey, the reason that I want to date you is because I'm homeless and you have a 2-bedroom apartment. They're not going to be impressed. So consider that. Okay. Why did you leave your last job? Okay. This is a relationship question. This question is why'd you leave your last job? Is why'd you guys break up? What happened to your last relationship? We always want to hear positive things because we want to think that the relationship that you have with us is going to end positively, or it'll last forever in a positive manner. So we're looking for positive outcomes, typically in the interview process. So if you can have your clients look at the interviewing process from a different perspective, if they were not qualified for the position, they would not have gotten the interview. So now they can focus on being liked. I'm going to give you some tools that will help you be liked. Now, this is where you're going to need your scratch paper. I call this technique my grand slam statement. Now, for my baseball fans, you know, baseball is, the season is actually running really quickly. Um, and I'm a Dodger fan. I should have brought my Dodger hat. I hope that we win the championship again. But this is a grand slam statement. So for those of you who understand baseball, you're going to understand this technique well. So I want you to draw a baseball diamond on your scratch paper, okay? Doesn't have to be as elaborate as mine. But I want you to draw a baseball diamond, okay? If you're drawing, the pitch is your positive quality, okay? So the pitch is your positive quality. So in the middle, where the pitcher is, where Kershaw is, because there are no better pitchers. So where Kershaw is, I want you to write, I am, and then one of your positive qualities. In my case, I'm going to say, I am creative. Okay. Now you get your hit, you run to first base. First base is where, or the name of the company that you exhibited that particular quality. Okay. First base is where, or the name of the company that you exhibited that particular quality. So I said that I was creative. I'm going to say at LACO, or the Los Angeles County Office of Education. So in your case, you would say at the California Placement Association, or at the name of the organization that you exhibited that particular quality. Okay, are you with me? Perfect. Second base is up top there, it's up top. Second base is the position or title you held at that organization. So in my case, I'm going to say as a career development program specialist, because that's my title at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. So you might say as a coordinator, or whatever your position is, or whatever the position was that you held at that particular company on first base. Are you with me? Perfect. Third base. Third base is the proof. In other words, what did you do to prove that you were that particular quality? Now, in my case, I said I was creative. So here at the proof, I would write, I create videos and workshops that make the interviewing process simple. And this assists my workers or my clients in their transition into the workforce. So I would write that at proof. I create tools and techniques to assist my participants in their transition into the workforce. That's what I'd say. Now, whatever your positive quality is, you want to write proof of that positive quality. So if you say you were punctual, you would say, I came to work on time every day, or I was always present in meetings, or whatever made you punctual. Are you with me? I'll give you a couple more seconds.
We are with you.
Outstanding. I'll give you a couple more seconds to write the proof there. Okay. Home. Home is relevance. Relevance, or why it matters to the new organization that you have that particular skill. Why it matters. Now, for me, I'm a workforce professional, and numbers are important to us. Placement numbers are important to us. So I would say this matters because this will assist in our placement numbers. You notice I said our. The reason I said our is because I'm trying to subliminally let them know that we're going to be together. Just as if we were going on a date, I'd be like, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to put things together so we can buy a house together. You know, I'd start building right then. Subliminal messages. You can use that in dating too, just so you know. Yeah, I'm a relationship expert. This is what I do. So after you write that last one, then now we're ready to play baseball. So I'm going to give you mine. You have written yours down, so you'll be able to read yours. So I'm going to let you know how a grand slam statement should sound. It should sound something like this, and it's designed to answer any strength-based question. Strength-based questions are, what are your greatest strengths? If I called your last employer, what would they say about you? I've interviewed people with more experience than you. Why should I hire you? What qualities make you unique? What motivates you? These are all what I call strength-based questions. This technique will answer any strength-based question. So if one of you will please ask me a strength-based question, I will show you how the grand slam statement works.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Vendon, and why do you choose to want to work here?
Thank you. One thing, I'd like to let you know that I am a very creative person. When I worked at the Los Angeles County Office of Education, second base, as a career development program specialist, third base, I created and implemented programs and instructional videos to demystify the interviewing process to help my clients. Home plate. This is important because I will be able to bring that same quality to your organization, which will assist us in making sure that we meet our placement goals.
Home run!
That's how the home run statement works. Is there anyone out there that would like to share their home run statement or their grand slam statement? Okay. And if we were in workshop together, I would make sure that someone shared so that we would have the opportunity to practice. Now,
I'll join
this
you,
technique
Vendon.
works.
I'll
I'm sorry.
participate. It's Eileen.
Hey, Eileen.
I'll participate.
Outstanding. Did you write your grand slam statement out already?
I did.
Outstanding. Eileen, if I called your last employer, what would they say about you?
So, I am,
Chocked?
I'm embarrassed, but this is fun. I am energy and light. I work with LACO as a career development program specialist where I create trainings and presentations to help others meet their successful employment goals. This is important to the company because we can achieve together by working and meeting our program goals.
Outstanding. Give it up for Eileen.
I have a good role model. Here we go. It starts with Vendon. Thank you.
Outstanding. Now, for those of you who are job developers and you have to work with have to work with clients, this technique is a fun way to and also allows them to participate. Now, it also though allows them to practice. What happens is oftentimes with me, the reason why I feel like people are not as effective in the interview process is because they don't have tools to practice. This tool allows them to take their information and they can keep it and they can review and they can refer back to it at a later date. So you have this exercise in class, you teach the technique, you allow them to take turns practicing, and now you know that they can answer strength-based questions. I also will ask different strength-based questions so that the clients understand that the questions may vary, but this technique will answer that question. So I call this, again, my grand slam statement. I got this from an organization called Curtis and Associates that I worked with in the 90s. And I've vamped it, if you will, and put my spin on it. But it is a tool that works really, really well. It's also quantitative and qualitative. Depending on who you're teaching, you can simplify it or you can make it more complex. The cool thing is your client or the person that you're working with gets the opportunity to create this information. Now, the two top qualities that employers look for based on the Association of Student and Teacher Development is integrity and the ability to communicate. This technique does both. It shows their ability to communicate, and it's also true information. And it also can be used on any level, any level. So if you had a person who was a daycare provider, they could use this technique and they can sell themselves to an employer, okay? So I'll call this technique again, Grand Slam statement. You can use this also in a group setting. It's also kind of fun because it allows for group participation. So thank you, Eileen. You are such a superstar. Thank you so much for participating. The next tool I would like to introduce you to, this technique is designed to answer the weakness question. The weakness question. Okay, so now the weakness question, is kind of a setup. And oftentimes the weakness question used to derail me. I'll give you a real true life example. I was in an interview before I started working with Curtis and Associates. And it was a panel interview, and it was probably 6 people on the panel. And I'll never forget, because when they got to the last person, her name was Dory Ford, and Dory was she was the director of the program. And I was flying through the interview. I was doing such a great job because I'd worked in job development before, but I'd interviewed a lot of people. But Dory Ford asked me, what was my greatest weakness? And in my excitement, I actually gave her a weakness. I said, well, my biggest weakness is paperwork. So she looked at me, and then she looked around at her other colleagues, and then she said, wow, well, this company requires a lot of paperwork. In fact, we're federally funded, so your documentation is extremely important. In fact, we could lose contracts if you're unable to document. I was like, wow. So then I had to do the rug dance. I was like, well, I can do paperwork, and it's just not my most favorite thing to do, but I enjoy doing paperwork, but it's not. So now I had to backtrack and kind of do the rug dance. Well, it actually kind of derailed my interview. Now, fortunately, they was like, we think we could teach this guy. So they did hire me, and I was able to have a pretty good career with them. But I'll never forget how I felt that, and how our clients feel when they're unable to answer this question. So I actually created this technique. I call this technique my Swiss sandwich. Now, if you have your scratch paper, you can write this down. I also have some handouts, and I'll send it to Ms. Crawford, and we can put it on the website so you all can use it as a handout. But Swiss is an acronym. Swiss stands for, that first S is strength. You can write this down because I didn't write it here. I intentionally didn't put it here so that you would have to write it. The first S is strength. W is weakness. I is impact. S, solution. And that final S is strength again. Now, again, there are 2 rules to the weakness question. The first rule to the weakness question is never admit a weakness without an explanation. Second tip to the weakness question is never say, I don't have any weaknesses, because the company is going to continue to grind you until you give them something. This technique allows you to actually give them a weakness with the explanation. So again, strength, weakness, impact, solution, and strength. Okay, so I need another participant. If you could give me a real weakness, another participant, I'm going to show you how to put the, how to develop your Swiss sandwich. Now, the reason I call this a Swiss sandwich is because if you notice, the weakness is sandwiched between strengths. That's why I call it my Swiss sandwich. Okay? All right. So, can someone please give me a real weakness? And I'm going to turn it into a Swiss sandwich.
This is Megan Petroni with We Care, time management.
Thank you. Time management. Okay, outstanding. Thank you so much, Megan. Time management. Okay, Megan, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Could you walk through the exercise with me since
Yeah.
you volunteered? That's great. Okay, so let's go. So we're gonna so at the weakness, we're gonna write time management there, right?
Yeah.
But if we say time management without sandwiching, then they're gonna assume that we're not gonna be able to manage our time, right? So we're gonna sandwich that. So Megan, why do you kind of have problems with time management? Is it because you have a lot to do? Is it because, why do you have struggles with time management?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I have a lot on my plate and then I get overwhelmed. So I kind of just shut down and see what's on Amazon.
Perfect, I love it. That's excellent. So we're gonna tell them a piece of that. So Megan, can we conclude then as a strength, because we're gonna pop up to that strength, can we say that you're a multitasker?
Yes.
Okay, so as a strength, we're gonna say, I'm a multitasker.
Okay.
Now we're gonna bounce down to impact. So what is the negative impact of struggling with time, Megan?
I miss deadlines.
Perfect. So let's write that for impact. Now, how do you resolve that issue? How do you resolve the issue of missing the deadlines? What are you doing to kind of fix that problem?
Usually I bat my long eyelashes and say sorry.
Okay, okay. You bat your long eyelashes and say sorry. Okay, good. So you apologize.
Right.
Is there anything that you do to prevent it? Do you have like a planner, or do you have a planner, or do you?
Yes, I set a lot of alarms and reminders.
Perfect. Write that down for solution.
Okay.
Okay. Now, that final strength, as a result of setting alarms and reminders, how does that help you?
It keeps me organized so I know what order I need to do things in and when I need to get it done by.
Okay, good. Write that.
Okay.
Okay. So now, Megan, your Swiss sandwich is complete. Now, would you like me to be you, Megan, one time, or do you want to be you?
You be me.
I'm going to be you one time. So I want you to be me and ask me the weakness question.
Okay, so what is your biggest weakness?
That's a great question. Now, does it seem like I'm thinking?
Yeah.
I'm really not thinking. I already know what I'm going to say, but but I usually pause like this because typically people don't have a response for the weakness question right away.
Right.
So I always, and so instead of just start rambling, I just stay quiet. So the employer is kind of looking at me like, what, is he going to say something? So I normally will kind of let a few beats pass, and then I give them my Swiss sandwich. So here it is. I'm Megan now with my long, let me give you my eyelashes. I am a multitasker, and I'm always working on several projects at the same time. So I would have to say my weakness sometimes is time management. And the negative impact of that is sometimes I tend to kind of miss deadlines and I'm a little stressed out about it. So what I've done to resolve this issue is I set reminders for myself and alarms. And what those alarms and reminders do is they allow me to stay organized. They allow me to finish my projects in a systemic way, and I'm able to get things done that way. So I'm working on my weakness.
Yes.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yes.
Now, the company has no idea that you're doing a Swiss sandwich. What they hear is your effective communication. Companies are going to remember the first thing you say and the last thing you say, which is why I always make sure they're positive. So now, Megan, you be you now. Since I was you, now I want you to be you using your information.
Okay.
What would you consider your greatest weakness?
Good question.
And the Academy Award goes to Megan for her performance in the interview with her pause. I love it.
Yes. Well, I am a multitasker. I take on a lot of projects at the same time. So sometimes my weakness can be time management. Because I struggle with time management sometimes, I tend to miss deadlines or forget when to turn paperwork in. So how I've resolved this issue in my life is that I have set reminders on my calendars. I've set alarms on my phone to remind me that I'm coming close to those. And it's really helped me to get organized and to know where my priorities are.
Everybody give it up for Megan.
Had me nervous.
That's outstanding, outstanding. So this technique, again, can be utilized with any age group, with any level of professional. The whole goal here is, again, to give them tools that they'll be able to utilize and study, no doubt. If we were in a group setting, I will call on a few more people so that I can make sure you have the concepts. Sometimes there will be some of the students or some of your job seekers that may need some additional assistance. In that case, you know, you just work through them just like we did. Again, this is a new technique, so let them know that they don't have to be perfect. It's a new technique. You're just learning it. And so allow them to kind of practice. This will give them confidence. And so, you know, especially those job developers, when you're setting up interviews, this will give your job seeker confidence. And so they'll go in with a different attitude. And that's the whole goal, is to demystify this process. Now, again, all of you are already difference makers, and you're assisting many, many people. These fun techniques will give them a different perspective, but it'll give them the confidence that they need to walk in and know that there's nothing that an employee will be able to ask them that they're not going to be able to answer. Okay. So those are two of my favorite techniques. Again, the Grand Slam statement or the home run statement allows you to answer any strength-based question. This question allows you to answer any weakness question. Now, weakness question could come in different forms. They could say, what's your greatest weakness? They could also say, give me a time when you failed and how did you handle that failure? Okay. That's a version of the weakness question. All you have to do is you're going to utilize the same technique. You're just going to utilize their verbiage. And here's how it happens. If they say, tell me a time when you failed, you can say, well, you know, I'm a multitasker and I take on a lot of projects. But sometimes that I failed, sometimes in my time management. And I realized that, you know, it stresses me out and I miss some of my deadlines. So what I've done to resolve this, and then you, as I said, so you just use their terminology, but you're able to use the same technique. So again, the goal here is to let you know that you can answer the questions, and this is also shows your ability to communicate, and it's also true. So and you don't get stumped. So I have a few more questions before we close. I have just a couple more minutes. I know I go to 3:15, and I looks like I have about 16 or 17 more minutes. Can I answer any more questions or any areas that you've had problems with teaching with teaching your clients or even yourself? Are there any more questions that I could give you some techniques for? Maybe you could open up the let people talk, or even or allow them to put in the chat so I can answer questions.
Yeah, either way, either way.
I really like what you just said about the mindset piece of it, and helping clients understand that it's a learning process and that interviewing is a skill that they're going to have to develop. I just wanted to know if you had any other tips or tricks related to mindset for folks who maybe haven't interviewed in a long time or are just feeling particularly, you know, not very marketable. It's just low self-confidence. What kind of approaches you take for that?
So typically, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. I believe that this is a learn by doing process. So I make sure that everyone participates. So as I'm teaching the techniques, I make it, you know, make it fun. I even have what I call a ooh ah bag, where I have a lot of candy and tchotchkes and little stuff like that. So when I get people to participate well, I'll let them put their hand in my ooh-ah bag. So I'll tip the bag and they'll put their hand in. And when they put their hand in, we say, ooh. When we take the hand out, we say, ah. Now, believe it or not, adults will eat that up. And they'll stack all the candies in front of them, you know, like trophies. And so if you can get them to participate, then you can teach them. Confidence comes from doing it. And so so I never let them not participate. So sometimes, you know, it's kind of touchy where people will go, well, Vendon, you know, sometimes my people, I people who are quiet. Look, you can't be quiet in the interview, so I won't allow you to be quiet in the club. I won't allow you to be quiet because you're going to have to answer these questions. These questions are going to happen, whether you're nervous or not. So I find that the more you practice with them, they're going to get confidence. And then you switch up the questions a little bit. And, you know, then when they find out that, wow, I'm not gonna implode, then they'll have more confidence. But you have to practice with them, make it fun, and allow them to ask additional questions and just continue to demystify it. You know, kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had a child that was maybe riding a bike and falls down, and then you go, you're all right. That they're about to cry, and then you go, you're all right, get up, you're fine. And then they get up and keep riding. That's kind of what you do to your job seeker. You'll be fine. I got you. Go ahead. You're fine. And then you reassure them and continue to practice with them and let them know that, hey, the more you practice, the better you'll be. I mean, I've had job seekers that have anxiety and they're like, you know, I don't want to get up in front of the class. And I always let them know, look, if you can get up in front of me, you'll be ready for the interview. And oftentimes what they'll do is when they come back, they'll report to me that, oh my God, that interview was nothing like we practiced. And I'm like, because I'm preparing you for the worst. It won't get worse than what we've practiced. So if it's less than what we practiced, then you're going to master that. But it won't be tougher than this. So set a precedence that you're going to make sure that you practice with them, make sure that you provide them with the tools, and make sure that they have the tools mastered. And that'll give them confidence. I hope I wasn't too rambly there.
Vendon, we have a couple of people, Elizabeth and Megan, who both asked about what are the best questions to ask at the end of the job interview?
Perfect. That's a great question. Okay, typically I ask questions that allow me to talk. So I might ask a question like this. I may say, I never ask about salary because salary is a benefit. I don't ask about the benefit of being in the relationship on the first date because that's not the time to ask for benefits of the relationship. I ask for benefits of the relationship when you're inviting me into the relationship. Does that make sense? So I believe that the interview is my time to show myself to the company. The job offer is their time to show themselves to me. So, but on the first date, I wouldn't say, so, you know, what's going to happen? So what are we going to do? You know, I wouldn't talk about the benefits of being in a relationship. So I stay away from benefit questions. What I do talk about are things that allow me to speak. So here's a question that I ask. Write this down. What is your ideal candidate? Or what are you looking for in a person that you hire for this position? Now, the reason that I ask that question is because I want them to tell me what they're looking for. And then I home run statement. Then I give them home run statements. So when they say, well, Vendon, we're looking for someone who's dedicated, who's motivated, who has great time management skills, then I go, great, I'm glad you said that. I'm very motivated. When I worked at the Los Angeles County Office of Education as a career development program, so as you see where I'm going with it. So my goal is to ask questions that allow them to allow me to talk, especially because I only have 30 minutes to sell myself. So I want to make sure that I'm talking in that 30 minutes, if that makes sense. So I might ask them, why did you choose this career? I might ask them, you know, why is this position now open? So that they can kind of give me an idea of kind of the lay of the land. But ultimately, I want to know what you're looking for so that I can, and I may even ask, is there anything else that I didn't share in the interview that you wanted to know about me? Because I want to make sure that you have all the information to make a decision. So I might ask that question as well. but that's the first interview. Now, during the job offer, obviously there's time for salary negotiation to talk about that, but that's a whole nother workshop.
Okay, Vendon, here's one. What conflicts have you had with, if this is if the employer asks you what conflicts you've had with a coworker and how did you resolve it when you haven't had any job experience?
So when they say colleague, that could be, to me, colleague is someone that works with me. So that could be my brother, that could be my cousin, that could be, that could be, if we're arguing about the dishes, that's work experience. A company doesn't care where you gain work experience, they care that you have it. So if you have limited work experience, but you argue all the time about how you handle the chores, that's the way to answer it. So you may say something like, if you have limited work experience and all you've ever done was babysat, or childcare provider, because if you change the language, babysitting is not a job, but childcare providing is. So if you say, as a childcare provider, I had challenges with one of my clients, maybe that's your cousin who's your client. So, they wouldn't get back in time, and they had me sitting for 2 hours, but they would come back 4 hours later. So how I resolved that challenge is I went to talk with them. I had a conversation about time management and how important it is to value my time. And we were able to, to resolve that issue. And the next time I provided childcare for that person, they got back on time. So you could use everyday scenarios. Even volunteer work is considered employment. I mean, it's because the company doesn't care where you gain work experience. Some of your clients may have worked at the church. There's always challenges in working with God's people, because Then there's volunteerism. If you volunteer, you've had some challenge with volunteering. Maybe you had a paper route or something that you did for supplemental employment. Companies don't care where you gain work experience. So when you're talking with your clients, make sure you pull all that out. Some of them worked for their schools. They did volunteer work. They worked in a class. Some of them worked various summer programs. Again, the company doesn't care where you gain work experience. They care that you have it.
Okay, and this is similar, but they're asking, do you have any strategies or tips to answer a question when you don't have any experience in that area? You've never done what they're asking you about.
So typically, that doesn't take me by surprise because I've already reviewed the job description. So with some of your clients who may not have a lot of work experience and they're applying for certain jobs, sit down with them and look at the job description and then find what I call transferable skills. So maybe, find some of their work experience that they've done. And sometimes, again, it's a volunteer work, but it still translates. It's transferable skills. So don't be afraid to sit down with them and look at the job descriptions and then go through, maybe with their resume, or maybe if it's even not on their resume, but go through with them and find times that they did actually do that job or do that particular skill. Now, if it's something that you've never done and you're applying, you shouldn't be applying for a position, first of all, that you have no experience in whatsoever. Remember, if you got screened in, that meant they enjoyed your profile enough to call you. So chances are they like you. So if they like you for the most part, but you've not done some of those things, then sell the fact that you're trainable and that you're flexible. Tell them about a time that you learned something faster than normal, and let them know that you're a fast learner and you're willing to learn a new skill. But don't lie. If you've ever been on a date with someone and you're talking with them and you ask them a question and it seems like they're lying, what happens? You shut down. That's exactly what the employer is going to do. So never embellish. Just tell the truth. And if you don't have the skill, just say, you know what? I've never done that. Admit it. I've never done that, but I'm a quick learner and I have all the other transferable skills for this position. So I'd be willing to learn that particular skill set. So tell them to admit it. Don't lie.
Great. And that's probably the answer for this question. Do you have any tips about answering why you left your previous employment if you were fired?
Okay. So, so instead of saying fired, I stay away from those words because fired would imply that, that I did something wrong. So I might say the contract ended. The contract was I was hired. Now I'm not. The contract ended or the job ended. That might imply that it was a temporary position. If I was only there for a few months, I might say it was seasonal. It was during the summer. So just rephrasing instead of saying fired, I just rephrased that, that we're no longer working together. So I don't say I got fired. I might say, the company, the contract ended with the last company. So now I'm looking for another opportunity. Or I might say, again, it was a seasonal position. Or I might say, the job ended because I got fired. But I don't say that part.
Great. So we have a few more minutes. We have a couple more questions. This
Okay.
one, what's the craziest question you've ever been asked in a job interview or you've ever heard of being asked in a job interview, I guess?
Yes. All the questions, to me, there are three questions in the interview. Tell me something about yourself. What is your greatest strength and what is your greatest weakness? All of the questions revolve around that. So they may say something like, this was the craziest question I've ever gotten. If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? That's a strength-based question. So I said something
that
like,
question.
I'd say something like, well, I'd be a leopard because leopards are flexible, even though they can't change their spots. I'm flexible. When I worked at the Los Angeles County Office of Education as career development program specialist, I just push it to a home run statement. So I will find a way to push to one of those techniques. I have another technique called personal commercial, but I didn't share that one. So I either push them to my personal commercial, to my Swiss sandwich, to my home runs or my grand slam statements. The other questions are about work experience and about doing things on the job. And I know that either you know that or you don't. But when I'm selling my skills, that's usually where. So they'll ask questions like, if you were a tool in a tool belt, what tool would you be and why? You would want to practice these questions with your clients, helping them to identify which technique they can use to answer it as well. So I would use home run statements for those types of questions. But those are the weirdest questions that I received. If you were a dessert, what dessert would you be and why? And the reason why companies ask those different questions is because you can't practice those because those are not on the internet. So they just are getting creative. But if you know what you're going to say already, it doesn't matter what they ask you. You can push them to one of your techniques. So my recommendation is when you're doing home run statements or grand slam statements with your classes, make sure you have them do 5 grand slam statements, 5 using 5 of their positive qualities. That way, it doesn't matter what strength-based question you ask them, they'll be able to respond appropriately.
Great. And one more, and you've got a lot of fans on here, Vendon. There's
Hey!
about you, so make sure you read those. This one said, what if you left because of your manager? I know you said don't put the employer down, but what if you left the job because of something you did?
So I never, okay, so let's use the relationship as an analogy. I still would never say anything bad. I wouldn't say, yeah, me and Denise broke up because Denise kept taking my glasses. Like I wouldn't go into detail. I would just say that, I was ready for another promotional opportunity, which is why I'm pursuing your organization. Companies don't usually care when you're moving up. If you're leaving me for a better position, companies, they want you to do better. They hope that you're doing better. So I focus then on the company that I'm pursuing more than the company that I left. So when they say, why'd you leave? Why'd you leave your last company? I'll normally say, I was looking for a promotional opportunity, or I was looking to grow with another organization, or I was looking to advance. So I'm looking for, so I want that company to feel like I'm interested in you because this is a better opportunity for the both of us. So I never say, oh, you know, I didn't work with Sarah because Sarah, she was mad, and you know, Sarah, she didn't like my shoes. Like, I don't talk about the negative. I talk about what I'm bringing to the new organization. And I'll just say that I was there, and that was a great opportunity, but now I'm looking for an advancement opportunity. And companies typically don't mind when you're looking to advance, especially if you're the advancement.
So we want to hear you just belt out one great note, Vendon. Like, give us a piece of your voice, and before we end, go for
That's
it.
difficult to do, but I tell you what, that's difficult to do. But next time I'll sing along with whatever's playing. You know?
Okay. All right.
So
Well, thank you, Vendon.
thank you all for taking the time to check in and come in. And I hope that the tools were effective, and I hope that you're able to use them with your clients. Thank you, California Placement Association, for considering me. Please invite me back. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.